Peace be upon you. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation that passes for knowledge in today's society, and I don't think that this current era of false knowledge is anything new. I think the people in power, the people who understand things, they have always clothed the truth in falsehood and given the masses fictions and hidden the true knowledge from them. Because once you gain true knowledge, you start to see things for what they are, and you automatically start to detest the wrong things, the evil things, and uh, want to do the right thing. And we read in the Quran, it says, there's a prayer in there that says, my Lord, increase me in knowledge. And it's true, we should always be praying to God to increase us in knowledge, because knowledge is the key. The Quran has knowledge in it, true knowledge, and falsehood cannot approach it. This is the safeguard that God has put on the Quran, and we can always go to the Quran to look for true knowledge. And in that regard, I want to talk about addiction in this episode. And the reason I wanted to talk about addiction is because I know a lot of people, and myself included, I have suffered from many of these things myself. A lot of people have a hard time quitting addictions. And in the society of today, where everything is so fake, so material, and people are lost, they don't really see a purpose. Everything is just crisis mode or war mode or pandemic mode. Every day the messaging is that there's a disaster coming, and that puts people in a hopeless situation. Obviously in the U.S., and I'm sure it's the same across the world, economic factors come into play as well, where you basically have to work as a wage slave just to make ends meet, and on top of it you're given garbage to eat. So there's no sort of there's nothing that's healthy out here, and that weighs heavily on people's minds and makes their mental situation worse. So obviously then they turn to some form of escapism, and that is what addiction is. It's an escape. It's a trying to escape your current situation by using means such as drugs, alcohol, pornography, entertainment, junk food. Um, but the problem with all these things is that they eventually, in the long run, make things worse. And as I mentioned to you, in the Quran, it says, "My Lord, increase me in knowledge." You need to gain knowledge about this thing, about addiction. If you have, if you if you think that you want to escape this, and I'm sure if you're watching or reading or listening to stuff that's related to addiction, that this is your purpose, you understand that this addiction, this evil habit has taken a hold upon you, and you want to be free of it, you want to somehow defeat this monster, then you need to understand what the nature of this enemy is that you're fighting. Now, what you've been taught about addiction is a lie. Like everything else, it's made up of half truths or outright lies or fictions. There isn't really much truth to what is told to you about addiction. Usually, when someone is diagnosed as an addict, then they're told that this is a condition, and they're helpless, and even if they do kick this addiction, they will be for the rest of their lives be ex-addicts, and they'll have to go through life without this one joy that they had. Um, if you're abreast of current events, you know that there was a big hoopla about this guy. I think his name was Chandler in France. He died of a drug overdose, and he was an alcoholic for the better part of his life, and he went through many rehabs and interventions, etc., etc. If you want more details on it, you can read his book or skim through some of the things that are written about his book. But basically, his life was just chasing, just getting numb. And you would think that someone who has all the fame in the world, all the wealth in the world, has the good looks and the health, wouldn't suffer from this. But that goes to show you that this materialistic pursuit that we are told that will make us happy actually is a lie. And the more you run after these material things, the more they make you sleepless, the more they make you agitated. Anyway, to cut a long story short, this guy, he died of a ketamine overdose. This is some other new wonder drug that came out that apparently has more potency than the regular stuff, because this is how addiction works. Over time, you need higher dosages, or you need more of exotic drugs or experiences to give you that high, because your baseline is now completely eradicated. You don't really have a baseline to enjoy things, so you need more and more stimulation. And so this guy, he, even though he was recovering alcoholic, he was an ex-alcoholic, he moved on to something else, and that took his life. So what I want to come back to is this idea of what an addiction is. An addiction is not a chemical imbalance in your brain. It is not something that you are genetically predisposed to. It is not something that you are helpless against. And certainly, it is not something that you, once you kick, for the rest of your life, you will be longing after. This is the lies that are told to you on a constant basis, even by those who are pretending to be helping you, that this addiction is very difficult to break. No addiction is difficult to break. It's really a way of thinking that needs to be changed. In other words, you have been brainwashed into thinking these things, that addiction is you're hopeless, or that you don't have any power against of breaking free. We read in the Quran, it says that on the day of judgment, Satan will say that I called and you followed, so blame not me, but blame yourselves. So it's clear from the revelation of God, the true knowledge from God, that whatever the whispers you're getting in your mind, what the addiction is calling you towards, at the end of the day, you have the final say. You make the decision. Okay? So it's not like, suppose you're a heroin addict. It's not like that the injection is forcing you to inject it into your bloodstream. It is you making a decision to do that. So you have the power. You're not powerless. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that addiction, you need to understand that when you are taking these substances, or you're watching porn or whatever, what you are doing is you are prolonging your misery. And let's just take an example. For someone, if you walk, obviously now it's very common in the US, you're walking down the street and you see a homeless person shooting up heroin or whatever. Would you feel pity for this guy, or would you feel that you're missing out on something? Well, according to his perspective, the heroin addict's perspective, he is embarking on this great experience, this beautiful experience, this bliss when he's injecting, right? But from your perspective, the truth, that this person is slowly killing themselves, is prolonging their misery, and nothing good is going to come out of it. So we need to apply this true knowledge to our addictions. I mean, think about for a minute, for instance, if you're smoking, you enjoy smoking or vaping. If you look at it from sort of an outside perspective at what you're doing, you're lighting a cigarette. you need to go through the experience. What exactly is about the cigarette that is so satisfying? If you actually, try it out. Try it out. If you are a smoker, then try out what I'm saying here. Is it the act of lighting the cigarette that's exciting? Is it the anticipation? Is it the experience itself? Because if you think about it, when you light up a cigarette, you're inhaling toxic fumes. And if you remember when you first started smoking, that was an unpleasant experience. You probably coughed, but you stuck through it. It was not something that was enjoyable. That came later as your brain acclimated to this poison, because that's what nicotine is. Nicotine is a poison. There's no debate about it. You can look up countless studies on what nicotine itself does to the human body or to animals. It was used as a pesticide for a long time as well. Nicotine is a poison. So you are slowly poisoning yourself by smoking. And I don't deny that when the anticipation, that's really the key. The anticipation of smoking is strong, and that gets you to start smoking. But make no mistake that the smoking part in itself is not enjoyable. If it was, then you would savor every cigarette. And as someone who has smoked, I know that this is not the case. Once you light up, there really isn't much joy to smoking the cigarette. You just want to smoke the cigarette and get on with your life. My father, he's a smoker. He's been a smoker since he was 17, and he's in his late 70s now. And I see him smoking. And really what it is that it's just a ritual. He goes in his morning cup of coffee, he goes and sits outside and opens up his cell phone, starts reading the social media and YouTube and Facebook and all the other brainwashing channels, and so sits there and watches that and just smokes. But he's not really enjoying the smoking, because if you're enjoying smoking, you would be happy, you would be lively. But he just sits there and he just smokes for 5-10 minutes, and then he's done, and that's it. But you need to understand that addiction in itself is not something that is rewarding. What you're doing is you're scratching an itch, and this itch, this wound was created in the first place by this addiction. So this is the cause, and I would suggest that if you are struggling with any sort of substance abuse or alcoholism or cocaineism or smoking or whatever, even porn, I would suggest that you read this book. It's by a gentleman called Allan Carr. He's dead now, but he used to be a lifelong smoker himself, and he cracked the code of smoking and addiction, how to get free from smoking. And I think his book is called Allan Carr, The Easy Way to Quit Smoking. I'll try to find the link of his book and put it on the description box. And also I'll put a link for another book, an ebook, which is free, that is based on the ideas of Allan Carr, but relates specifically to porn addiction. And if you go through this literature, you'll see that the main theme is that addiction is this is a manufactured idea. This is a fiction that's been given to you, that addiction, that quitting substances is hard. You will probably fail, and even if you quit, you're gonna go through life depressed, hopeless, trying to not use that substance, trying to not use porn or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that this is not true. And I can tell you with a certainty, because I myself have been addicted to many substances. And the pleasure you feel when you quit all this and know that you have quit. Okay, this is not something that I'm afraid that I'm going to get hooked onto this thing. Because again, the knowledge, Once you gain the knowledge, you understand the true reality of the situation, and you understand, okay, this is bad for me. There's no benefit in it for me, so why should I do it? And this is really what Allan Carr's book does so well. He breaks it down. He breaks this whole smoking thing down. Um, and once you see this for smoking, it's like a trick. You see through the trick, right? So once you see how the smoking addiction works, it's the same for all addictions. It's the same underlying psychological trap, which is that you have been fooled into thinking that this thing is giving you some sort of pleasure, some sort of contentment, and it's making you feel better, when actually it's doing the opposite. It's robbing you of your pleasure, it's robbing you of your contentment, and it's robbing you of your vitality, your health. And at the end of the day, what it's doing is it's getting you deeper into the hole. See, it's making that itch harder to scratch. And so if you are serious about quitting, and I'm using the word serious because, again, it comes down to that decision pathway. If you are serious about something, then you will quit. And if you're not serious about it, you won't quit. But you have to get serious about it, because if you've been smoking for a long time, or you've been, drinking for a long time, or you've been eating junk food for a long time, or you've been watching porn for a long time, deep down inside, that this thing is hurting you. This thing is not good for you, and it's giving you problems. It's a fact, right? I mean, I know for me, smoking, I used to smoke, and I smoked for a better part of 9, maybe 10 years, a decade, right? And I knew at the end, when I quit smoking, when I made the decision to quit smoking, the real decision, I knew that this was bad for me. That it was robbing me of my health. It was giving me problems, physical problems, not to mention the mental problems. And I realized that there is no good in it for me. And was the catalyst that got me into, this quest to find out how to quit. And obviously, I went through all those lies too, that addiction is a lifelong thing, and you're not really gonna ever be cured, and you're always gonna be called an ex-smoker, and you're always gonna be wanting to reach for the next pack of cigarettes. It's not true. It's not true. This is not true. This is false. And you can test this out for yourself. You can test this out for yourself. How? The first thing is, you need to understand that if you're a smoker, the addiction trap, the nicotine trap, what it is, how it works, okay? And this is how it works. When you smoke, your body absorbs that nicotine, and that nicotine gives your brain a high. It's true. It activates the dopamine receptors, and you get pleasure. I agree with that. But what it does is that it overstimulates your brain. And so what happens is that your brain then weeds down these receptors. It basically numbs them. It cuts them down, so you don't get that high anymore to that extent. And so once the nicotine starts being removed from your body starts getting rid of this nicotine. All of a sudden, your brain doesn't have those the feel-good chemicals anymore. The nicotine is going away, and now the receptors have been numbed. So your baseline for pleasure, which is now set at that threshold of that nicotine, since the nicotine is gone, your baseline for happiness, your pleasure, is set high. You set the bar too high, right? This is not the normal state of the brain. And so now this itch in you starts, taking place. I've seen the word monster being used for this as well. The little monster, the whisperings that you need to take the next session. You need to smoke again. So again, that reward circuit gets activated, and there's a flush of dopamine. But what's happening in the long run is that your brain is constantly rewiring itself, and it's pruning, it's cutting down on the receptors to compensate for the overwhelming dopamine rush. And that's why life becomes dull for you. You don't enjoy anything in your life because those things aren't reaching that threshold of the pleasure that you're used to. And the smoking is doing that. But then your addiction starts getting escalated because one cigarette a day is not going to do it for you. 2 cigarettes, 3 cigarettes, a pack, right? But we all know that cigarettes in themselves uh, are dangerous, and they will eventually kill you. And you need to make this clear that the people who design this are not interested in giving you pleasure, are not interested in actually selling you cigarettes so they can make money. They are trying to kill you. And this is that information, that true knowledge that I alluded to in the beginning, is that most of the stuff, whether it be weed, alcohol, pornography, junk food, uh, obviously nicotine, all this stuff, at the end of the day, the purpose behind it is to kill you. Because this is what the people at the top want. They want to kill you, they want to injure you, because this whole system that we are living in, whether it's the medical establishment or it's the food lobby or the pharmaceutical companies, they make profit, or the war industry, they make profit on people's misery. That's how they're able to sell stuff. And it's really not about the money either. The people at the top, they control the money supply. They can print as much money as they want. They're printing billions of dollars as we speak. It's really about the control, because you want to sicken the population, you want to make them weak, you want to bankrupt them, and this way keep them in the paradigm of the slave, right? If you have a population that's healthy, that's in good shape as far as like the mental conditioning, they will not stand for being exploited the way they are being exploited. But because the population is so dumbed down, they are so weakened, they are plagued with all sorts of sicknesses, that they are not able to really fight back. This is really what the understanding is, the true knowledge that's been hidden from you. So don't think for a minute that the cigarette companies were started because they wanted to sell a product to you and make money. The goal was always to make men sterile, make women sterile, obviously, make men weak, and get them addicted to this thing, and then obviously destroy their health. This was the goal. This is not a side effect. And this is the same thing that's happening with marijuana, weed, and food. Everything is weaponized. Junk food, pornography, social media. This is the kind of evil system that you're living in. If you don't accept this, if you don't agree with me, then unfortunately you will never really understand. You will never gain this true knowledge, understand it. Then you will always be a slave to their system, and you will not kick this addiction because you are approaching this addiction from the wrong perspective, from the false perspective. The true perspective, again, is that this addiction is designed to rob you of your vitality, your health, your happiness. And so there's nothing good in this, you see? There's nothing good in this. So the quicker you get rid of all these addictions, the better it is for you, in all senses, spiritual sense, physical sense, is good for you. Understand this. So let's talk a little bit about how to go about getting rid of this addiction, whatever your addiction may be, because a lot of people get stuck in, they understand that this is a problem, they understand that it's not doing them any good, but they say, well, I don't really have the willpower. Well, the thing is, you don't need any willpower for this, because what is all this willpower nonsense about? It's basically this false paradigm that's been given to you, that you're fighting between two decisions, right? But there really is no decision here. The only decision is you quitting, right? Because if you stack up the pros and cons of your addiction, you will see that there are many pros to you quitting, and there are zero cons of you continuing this habit, of not quitting. Okay, I understand this. Okay, what do I mean by this? Okay, so let's take um, pornography, for instance, and let's stack up the pros and cons. What are the pros of pornography? You could say pleasure. That's the only pro, right? What about the cons? Mm, degradation of your soul. Okay, you feeling um, shame, weakness, uh, mental degradation. Your faculties of the mind are being robbed. Weakness. Uh, Obviously, it affects your sterility, your virility. What else? Watching this filth, helping people, helping the sex industry, who is exploiting women. Um, the biggest one, the wrath of God, right? Now let's talk about this perceived pro pleasure, which is actually not a pro at all. This is the biggest. This is the biggest uh, hurt that you are doing to yourself. This pleasure. Why? Because, as I mentioned about addiction, the way it works is that it sets the bar really high. Every time you watch porn, you orgasm, you are setting the bar really high for your pleasures. So everything in life will be dull to you, and you will not enjoy anything. The only thing you will enjoy is more and more extreme forms of filth. This is it. And so you will be dragged into this hellhole, this black hole of porn, which is never ending, and you are slowly destroying your soul, okay, and slowly destroying your health, your virility, and you're torturing yourself. Now, this is something that I wanted to touch upon too, torturing, because this whole idea that I kept saying, you're injuring yourself or you're torturing yourself. What I mean by that is that all addictions, at the end of the day, what they do is as Allan Carr put it, and I think this is spot on. He said it's almost like wearing a shoe that is 2 sizes too small for you throughout the day, and then taking it off for 5 minutes, so you can feel some peace, some contentment. Another way to put it is, it's almost like you banging your head against the wall 24 hours a day, and then taking maybe 5 minutes off or half an hour off from banging your head. And you're saying this is pleasure. What do I mean by this? Well, think about smoking, right? As I mentioned to you, that smoking is what's causing the itch in the first place. Okay? A non-smoker, okay, not an ex-smoker, a non-smoker doesn't have the itch to scratch. He doesn't have an itch to scratch. He doesn't need to go out or light up a cigarette. He doesn't need to do all that. Why? Because he is enjoying himself throughout the day. Versus you as a smoker are miserable throughout the day until you get that brief respite where you go out and smoke a cigarette. But as soon as you extinguish that cigarette, you start becoming distressed and irritable. Why? Because that cigarette, that nicotine hit that you got, again opened up that wound, or again, what it did was it reignited that itch, and now you have to go again and scratch that itch. This is what it is. So you are torturing yourself. What I'm trying to say is that it doesn't make a difference whether you smoke once a day or you smoke one pack a day, one cigarette a day, one pack a day, or you smoke once a week. What you're doing is you're prolonging your misery, because as soon as your brain start, and this is really fast. Your brain starts to recover, starts to get rid of all this junk as soon as you stop taking that substance, abusing it. Your brain starts resetting, and so by the time it's reset, with nicotine, the half life is actually pretty short. So within a day, your brain chemistry has returned to that of non-smoker. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about the long-term damage that you've done to your body or your brain. That's something different. I'm just talking about the chemistry here, as in the nicotine has been cleared out of your system within 24 hours, and your brain has started to again come back to the normal state. Okay, it haven't reached that normal state. That takes time. Okay, but the rehabilitation centers and the addiction centers, or whoever is saying they're trying to help you, most of them are clueless about addiction themselves, or maybe they're purposely hiding the truth. Whatever the case may be, the fact of the matter is that your body does recover quickly, but that withdrawal that they keep talking about, the withdrawal, is actually very mild. Okay, it's very mild, and I'll give you an example of how mild it is. If you are smoking cigarettes, again, I give you my example of my father. He smoked for better part of his life. When he gets on a plane for going to Pakistan or whatever, that's an 18-hour plane ride. He's not smoking for 18 hours, and it's not like he wants to jump out of the plane. For me too, there's been times where I didn't have a chance to smoke. I didn't have any problems. And this is the withdrawal that they keep talking about, which is so strong, so intense that it forces you to light a cigarette. The withdrawal is actually pretty mild. It's the same with pornography. All these things, if you are not given the chance to do them, you will quickly see that it's really not that hard to not do them. So what about the times when you are given the opportunity to do them and then you fail and you say, oh, this is too hard? Because again, you have not quite understood what this addiction is about, what all these addictions are about. These addictions are robbing you of your future happiness. They're robbing you of your future health. They're robbing you of your future virility, peace of mind, contentment, satisfaction, and there's no good in them. You see, this is the part that you have to believe in. You have to understand it's the truth. Forget all the brainwashing. Sit down one day and actually think about, I'm sure as someone who has been addicted to these substances, and since I'm speaking from personal experience here, there were many times when I was quitting smoking and I thought to myself, man, I wish I hadn't even started smoking. I wish I could go back 10 years and not even have started smoking. And why was I thinking that? Because I thought to myself that, I wouldn't have known the joy of smoking, or, I wouldn't have this addiction. But really, what was the joy of smoking? There's no joy of smoking, see? And as an experiment, this is what I did in my last smoking session. I used to smoke, I didn't smoke cigarettes. I mean, I've tried them, but I was really addicted to hookah, shisha, and pipe, like the old school pipe smoking, the Virginia tobacco, and all the other Oriental tobaccos, which is all the same garbage. It's all poison. And this is a thought that came to me when I was, deep in this smoking addiction, this pipe addiction, where I used to smoke, a better part of 3-4 hours a day, and it was taking a toll on my body. And I felt like shit. I did. And I thought to myself, why am I slowly killing myself? And I couldn't really answer that question. I was just addicted to pipe smoking, and I tried to quit many times, and I failed. And one day I woke up and I thought to myself, I'm smoking poison. Like, I'm making such an effort in the rest of my life to eat good, to exercise, to do healthy things, but at the same time I'm smoking poison. I'm taking in poison. Is that the right course of action? So this is the part about knowledge. Once you understand what knowledge is, that all these substances are poison for you. Alcohol destroys your liver. It's poison. Pornography destroys your mind. It's poison. Not to mention, it drains you. So you need to understand that what you're doing is hurtful to you. It's destroying your health. And I'll tell you this up front. If you don't have health, you will never be happy. You will never be content, because the pain, the physical pain, will keep you from being happy. So this is why it's so important to quit, because you will feel like crap until you quit. And so you need to really sit down and think about what this thing is doing to you, how it's injuring you, how it's destroying your life, and financially too. It's an impact on you, a burden. And you need to think about what this thing is actually helping you. What pleasure are you deriving from this? As I mentioned to you earlier, there is no pleasure in it. If you sit down and you actually do your addiction, go through the ritual, and you actually try to observe yourself, as a third party, observe yourself doing something. Or you could take an iPhone and record yourself and just watch the recording, smoking or whatever. You'll see that you're not really deriving any pleasure from it. You're not happy because of it. I think Allan Carr is the one who wrote this. He said, look, if this thing was actually, you were enjoying it, you would gain pleasure from it, like smoking, for instance, right? Wouldn't you want to savor that smoking session? Wouldn't you want to make that cigarette last? But as soon as you put it on your lips, you want to just smoke, smoke, smoke and be done with it. It's the same with porn. You sit there and you don't even watch one video. You just click here and there and you get new tabs open and bum, 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 you're all here and there, and then that's it. You're not really enjoying it. Because it's not really the act, it's the chase, right? And we can take this to any addiction, alcohol addiction, whatever. An alcoholic just wants to get drunk. And make no mistake, all these addictions are the same. It comes back to that guy, the Friends guy. He was an alcoholic, then he got off alcohol and he moved on to something else, ketamine. And a lot of these addicts, that's what they do. They just move on to different drugs because they're not getting the same pleasure from that one drug, and they think that they accomplished something by quitting, but then they moved on to something else, because your brain doesn't care what chemical is going in, as long as it's that dopamine receptors are fired and the pleasure center is activated. So understand that this is not your right to be happy all the time, to be full of pleasure all the time. This is not something that human beings are supposed to be. You're supposed to feel sad, you're supposed to feel depressed, you're supposed to feel happy. All these are states. Okay, there is not just one state. And if you are serious about quitting, again I use the word serious advisedly, if you're serious about quitting, then you need to quit all substances together, everything. Okay, if you're addicted to porn or junk food or alcohol or weed, this is sort of the combination that most younger guys are addicted to. You need to quit all of these at one go. Why? Because addiction itself is the same thing. And you will realize quickly that once you quit all of these, you're not prolonging your misery. Because if you try to quit just one thing and then the other thing, trust me, it won't work. Why? Because if you quit one and then you try to quit the other, maybe you'll fail in that one, or maybe the one that you quit earlier, it'll come back. Because your brain is just seeking that, it just wants to level up on its dopamine, right? That's all it cares about. So if it doesn't get it from one addiction, it'll try to get it from the other addiction. And if you try to cut off that source, then it'll go back to the earlier source, or maybe another newer source. So addiction, if you're serious about quitting, quit everything together all at once. Change your lifestyle, change your habits. Okay? And understand, this is also one of the biggest lies that has ever been told about addiction. Understand that once you quit, then you are not an ex-addict, you're a non-addict. as in you are the same person as someone who hasn't done it. What I mean by that is that don't pine over this idea, oh, I wish I had gone back in time, I wouldn't have started. You are given this opportunity every day. You just decide one day, okay, I'm not doing this anymore, and you're done. There's no regrets. There's no reminiscing about those past events, about the pleasure you derive from it, which if you have understood anything from this talk, it should be that there is no pleasure in this. There's only hurt, there's only pain, there's only misery in this. So you need to understand that once you quit, you're done. That's it. And God willing, everything will heal. You will recover, and it'll take time for your body to recover. But you have quit, and you're a non-user now. You're not an ex-user. You're a non-user. That's it. You're done. So, to recap, this whole addiction idea is a lie. There is no addiction. You're not genetically predisposed to it. It's not something that you're helpless against. It's not something that you just if you don't do it, you won't be happy. This is all a lie. A better future awaits you. A happier future. Another thing, don't fear the addiction. Don't fear, and don't pine over your failures in the past, and don't pine over what if you go back, what if you fall and then you have to stand up again. Don't pine over that stuff, okay? Because addiction is driven by fear. Understand this. The fear, in the shame, the guilt, the regrets, this is what drives the addiction. These negative emotions, Shaitan, Satan, he always wants you to despair. Why? Because that's what drives him, the despair. Interesting, the word Iblis, which is the name of this entity before he fell. Iblis means despair. So understand that this despair is what drives you, your addiction, this fear. So don't be fearful. Believe in God, trust in God, and understand that God forgives all sins. And make the decision to not go back to this addiction, because there is no good for you in it. And this is really all there is to it. There's no good for you in this. Verify these statements. Don't just take my word for it. Believe in this. And I do suggest that you read Allan Carr's book, How to Quit Smoking Permanently, or Easy Way to Quit Smoking. I'll put a link in the drop down box below, and I'm sure you could find it on the internet somewhere. And also the book, the ebook that's specifically about porn. But again, once you understand the core idea behind what an addiction is and how this addiction is driven, and at that really you're not powerless against it, and that you can quit anytime, and you will not have any ill effects from quitting. You will enjoy quitting. You will enjoy the achievement of surmounting this Mount Everest, and also knowing that you will never go back to this addiction, because all it is the source of pain, misery, hardship, and you hating yourself. This is what addiction is, and that there is no pleasure in it. Any pleasure that you think you are getting from it is actually just the relief from the pain that this addiction has caused you. This is all the pleasure that you're going to get, you getting out of it. The pleasure that you think you're getting when you light up a cigarette, this is a pleasure that of someone who has not smoked has known for all his life. This is a pleasure he feels all his life. Understand that. Understand that. Think back to the time before you were a user, how your life was, how happy you were, how optimistic you were. You can get all of that back. You can get all of that back. That life, you can get that back if you make the decision today to quit all sorts of addictions that are hurting you, not helping you. I hope this talk was of some importance, some help to you. God willing, I'll keep make videos about this subject, as I understand that a lot of people are struggling with these addictions. This is being pushed upon uh, men specifically, these addictions, because again, the people in charge they hate you, they want to abuse you, exploit you, make you their slaves, and just they hate you. This is all there is to it. And all these things, social media and pornography and weed and all sorts of drugs, whether they be pharmaceutical or not, alcohol, gaming, all this stuff, is this whole industry. This is designed so you just suffer, and you live out your life. You extinguish your virility. This is all that what this stuff is. This will never bring you true happiness. True happiness happens when you achieve something, when you start a family, when you get ahead in life. This is what true happiness is. Accomplishments. This is not true happiness. This is just fake. So understand that, uh, and know that this is the truth. This is the truth. God willing, until next time, peace and blessings be upon you.